which rebrand rolled out recently is getting more categorical flack. More flack from just seemingly every quarter. MSNBC going with MS Now. Gavin Newsom going with trolling Trump as a political strategy. Or Cracker Barrel. Losing the cracker and losing the barrel in its new logo and modernizing the environment at those Cracker Barrel restaurants. I think part of the problem is and by the way, the stock is down 14% since they unveiled the logo, and it's down 45% since Julie Fels-Musino took over as CEO. And I think part of what may be rubbing people the wrong way is how Julie Fels-Musino talks about the business. Sort of like how that marketing whiz who brought in Dylan Mulvaney to the Bud Light campaign talked about eliminating the frat bro culture associated with Bud Light and beer generally. Here is Julie Fels-Musino talking to the always probing Michael Strahan on Good Morning America.
Honestly, the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive that people like what we're doing. I'll give you another soundbite. I actually happened to be in Orlando last week with all of our managers. We bring them together and every other year. And the number one question that I got asked, Michael, was, how can I get a remodel? When can I get a remodel? How do I get on the list?
Oh, really?
So because the feedback and the buzz is so good, not only from our customers, but from our team members. They want to work in a wonderful restaurant. So we're doing everything for our guests and our team members.
Well, Julie Musino, it's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for answering those questions for all the Cracker Barrel fans out there. And a lot of great changes.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Robin?
Can I get in writing that the peg game is going to stay?
Yeah. I don't know. Our next guest, Jonathan Alpert, talked about his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, comparing Zoran Mamdani, the leading candidate for New York City mayor, to a bad therapist. But he's also commented on some of these corporate marketing gambits, like the Sydney Sweeney ad, the jeans ad for American Eagle. He tweeted this. The Sydney Sweeney ad is not just selling a product, it's signaling a cultural turning point. For years, brands have bent over backwards to appease a small but loud activist class, producing ads that felt forced, joyless, and polarizing. Instead of speaking to consumers, they pander to an ideology that policed language, celebrated grievance, and punished anything deemed insufficiently progressive. This ad, the Sweeney ad, does the opposite. It's confident, fun, and refuses to apologize for appealing to mainstream sensibilities. Yeah. Well, Cracker Barrel seems to be going the other way in terms of what people, those guests, liked about Cracker Barrel. Much the same way Target lost its way this week, and its CEO, Brian Cornell, who was all in on exactly what Jonathan Alpert was talking about with the LGBTQIA2S+++ wear, the tucking clothing that was discussed, and he was pretty strident about it when queried as well. And he's stepping down amid lagging sales and plummeting stock price. What fate should we expect for Cracker Barrel? For more on this and the Mamdani piece, because it's a great sort of psychological profile of the electorate, in addition to a candidate that's a manifestation. Jonathan Alpert joins us, psychotherapist practicing in New York and Washington, author of Therapy Nation, which is forthcoming next year. Jonathan Alpert, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. Thanks so much for having me on.
So the Cracker Barrel rebrand, what's your sort of initial read?
Well, I think whether it's Target or Cracker Barrel or any of the other Bud Light, any of these other companies, the big misstep, the big mistake that they're making is they're trying to cater to a very, very small part of their buying base. 1%, 2%. as opposed to the other 98%. And they're alienating these people. So they haven't quite figured out that bringing on Dylan Mulvaney is not going to appeal to the other 98% or whatever it may be. I'm not sure what their thinking is. I don't know if they're just so woke that they just don't understand the basics of business, but it's killing their business, and they've got to make some changes.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's not. I mean, it doesn't even have necessarily the sort of segmented customer universe in mind. It's just, this is what I want to do. This is what I like, and if I like it, everybody will like it. I mean, it's all very solipsistic, which is sort of one of the recurring characteristics of leftist thought.
Well, that's exactly what we saw this last election. The Democrats, they catered to a very small percentage of the electorate. Not everyone in America cares about or is into trans issues or other woke issues. They care about putting food on the table, their wallets, safety, security, those types of things. But the Dems just keep getting it wrong. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if they rebrand themselves for the next time around. Doesn't look like they're doing that so far.
The piece on Mamdani and sort of the insight into the mindset of a Mamdani voter, it's so interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, he's bad news. And if you look at the people who are supporting him, these are probably the same people who are protesting against Israel, who were marching in BLM marches here in New York and destroying property along the way. These are the people who are beneficiaries of Biden's student debt relief program, all while they're sipping on their expensive $9 lattes in Brooklyn. So they just don't live in reality. They think that getting free housing, free buses, free subways, decriminalizing drugs, decriminalizing prostitution, they think that will lead to a better society, and it won't. All we have to do is look at, say, Portland, Oregon, where they decriminalized drugs, and that was such a bad social experiment. We saw the results of that. They were disastrous.
Posting videos claiming the Sydney Sweeney jeans ad is white supremacist in nature, that sort of profile. No, I get that. But here's the thing I wanted to get to. Your piece in the Journal starts with, a patient recently came to my New York therapy practice shaken after witnessing a violent assault outside her apartment. She said to you, "That's why we need Mamdani," which is just, wait a second. You're worried about violence in the city, and you're supporting a guy. That's why we need this guy who tweeted not that long ago, "We don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need to do is hashtag defund the NYPD." That's the guy you think is going to clean up the incidents of violent crime in the city. I mean, that's the disconnect you're dealing with. And the question I think on everybody's mind, certainly mine, with respect to that segment of the electorate, which seems to be preeminent in big city America, how do you get through to that patient of yours who came to your office and said that?
Well, you don't, unfortunately. But these are the same people who are not happy with Trump's initiative to crack down on crime in D.C. They'd rather have crime flourish. So it's hard to get through to a patient like this. They come in rattled because they witnessed a crime. So I get into therapist mode and I try to talk about what they witnessed, ways to prevent it. And then, of course, the conversation goes towards politics. And, oh, no, that's why we need Mamdani. No, that's not why we need Mamdani. That's why we need more funding and training for police. But, you know, they're looking at our society, our city through this lens where law enforcement is bad, social workers will rescue the city. They're not looking at it realistically.
Well, right. I mean,
there's no. Let's put it this way: if a woman is being beat by her boyfriend, and is hopped up on drugs or whatever the case may be, you don't send a social worker, you send a cop, and lots of them.
Well, right, but I mean, so you make the point about people reflexively retreating to comforting illusions about the world. Yeah, I sort of say the same thing, but I just talk about the beautiful lies that politicians tell people that they seem to eat up, and we had this conversation a couple weeks ago with Theodore Dalrymple, the retired prison psychiatrist across the pond there. And, you say, well, so how do you get through to somebody like that, sort of wants the right things, but is completely baffled by how to get them? And he basically said it's really difficult because it happens one-on-one and over time. It's not something where you can sort of deprogram 40% of New York City overnight.
Right, and he's right. And I'll challenge these patients thinking, if they come in and say, well, but we'll get free transportation, free rent, et cetera, I'll challenge them and ask, well, how do you think the city will pay for that? They don't understand the basic concepts of how this works. Taxes will go up. And every so often you can get through to them, but not too often. But it's the same mindset with the lead up to the Trump victory this past fall. People thought, oh, he's a Nazi, he's a dictator, he's going to round up the Jews, he's going to round up the gays, and I would challenge that thinking, but they were steadfast. They resisted my challenge. When the Nazi thing didn't happen, they moved on to the next anti-Trump rhetoric. So these are just sore losers. These are people who will never accept our democracy. They'll never accept that it was a clean victory, and they'll continue to hate Trump. These are also the same people who were disappointed when the shooter in July of 24 didn't get a better shot, in their words.
Yeah.
It's sickening.
Yeah, I mean, they're just, but some of them are completely gone. I mean, they're just empty vessels that are basically going to regurgitate the talking point du jour or the accusation du jour, as you said. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it seems to me there are others that maybe are reachable, but they sort of careen between, and you mentioned this in part in your piece, they sort of careen between nothing is solvable and if we work together, there's nothing we can't do. There's a sort of like nothing in between in terms of their understanding of which is reality and how to address whichever you think is reality.
Right. Well, they also don't want to do the work, and they're expecting handouts. Well, so therein lies the problem.
Yeah, I suppose, but I right. So they're, in other words, you're saying they're both rationalizations. If everybody came together, that's not going to happen. We could solve this problem. Even if everybody came together, or this problem of crime, it's just part of big city living. It's unsolvable. It's just the price you pay to live in a great city like New York and Chicago. So they just sort of fall back to rationalizations to accept the status quo.
Yeah, and it may be the price that we pay for living in a big city, but certainly bringing on a mayor who has campaigned on decriminalizing drugs and prostitution, that's just insane. Love him or hate him, Giuliani back in the 90s, he really cleaned up the city, and he did it by fighting crime the old-fashioned way.
And
But what a turnaround from the Giuliani days. Here we are legalizing drugs. We're such a permissive society. We're not prosecuting criminals. We're letting them walk. What a turnaround in the past few decades.
And how much of a contributor to this problem is your profession?
Well, pretty significant. My profession, unfortunately, has drifted big time from what they should be doing. If you look at graduate schools, I'm convinced they're turning out social justice warriors as opposed to solid clinicians who can help people with mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. A lot of the curriculum in these programs is centered around viewing people through the lens of oppressed or oppressor, and these students, these grad students, are drinking the Kool-Aid. It's such a huge part of the curriculum. There are a number of schools across the nation, probably most of the schools across the nation that buy into this, and it's such a big part of the curriculum.
I wonder if you have any tricks of the trade when you deal with somebody who has this sort of false persecution or victim complex. You know, they're suffering from quote unquote climate anxiety, or they're oppressed because they're a minority, just that status alone, or that their ethnicity alone makes them oppressed. And if there's success stories that you can share in terms of how you got from where they were to a place where they're more of an adult.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't assume that if, say, a black patient sees me, that being black is a problem for them. I don't assume that they face racism. They may, but I don't make that assumption. And in a recent article, I talk about a black patient who saw me for, I believe, like work stress, and had nothing to do with him being black. And he was telling me how his previous therapist was convinced that he must face racism because he's black. And the therapist kept pushing that agenda on him, and he got frustrated and fed up and said, no, I'm really just here to learn how to deal with some of my work stress. And he ended up leaving that therapist. So my point is, not every minority sees the world the way that some of these therapists seem to see the world, and the agenda that they push onto patients. But when a patient comes in, and if they truly are facing oppression or discrimination, I mean, that's a legit concern, and we'll address it. But if someone comes in with a victim mindset, I'll push back. I'll ask them to talk to me about what it is that they're experiencing, and then try to separate fact from fiction. Are you truly experiencing this, or do you just think that you are because that's what you see everywhere you look, and it's just part of what's out there on the left? So really trying to get people to see this with more clarity can be helpful.
Jonathan Alpert, psychotherapist practicing in New York and Washington, author of the forthcoming book, Therapy Nation. Jonathan Alpert, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Nice to chat with you.
Good to chat with you. And Jonathan Alpert joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
People ask us all the time, when's the best time to replace an old air conditioner? Simple.